من مقر السفير الألماني في بغداد أرحب بكم في هذه الحلقة الجديدة من برنامج في بيت السفير، حيث سنتعرف خلال هذه الحلقة على جوانب عديدة من حياة السفير الألماني في العراق، بالإضافة إلى العلاقات الثنائية بين العراق وألمانيا وفقرات عديدة. تابعونا.
سيرة حياة اكهارد بروزه. ولد بالتاريخ 6 من آيار عام 1958 في مدينة هامبورغ، متزوج ولديه 4 أولاد. حصل على شهادة الماجستير برسالته الموسومة الفلسفة في العلاقات الدولية عام 1983. عمل في وزارة الخارجية عام 1986، وثم عمل في الممثلية الدائمة لدى الناتو في بروكسل عام 1996. بعد ذلك تولى إدارة الشؤون الاقتصادية في السفارة الألمانية في موسكو عام 2007. أما في عام 2010 وحتى 2013 عين الممثل الدائم في الممثلية الدائمة لدى الناتو في بروكسل. كما عمل منذ عام 2013 مستشارا في مؤسسة العلم والسياسة في برلين. وفي تموز 2014 تولى منصب سفير جمهورية ألمانيا الاتحادية في العراق.
Hello. This is not a surprise.
Hello, how are you?
Very well.
Good, thank you.
Well, please come in.
Thank you.
Have a seat.
Thank you. How are you?
Well, I was looking forward to this moment.
Really? I would like to welcome you to our show, Mr. the Ambassador, Mr. Ekhard Brouze. Is that correct?
That was good. Yeah.
Good.
Ekhard Brouze. It's a difficult name for the
non-German speakers.
For non-Germans, but in particular also for Iraqis.
Okay.
But you can
well,
imagine,
I'm not Iraqi.
I know, but for Arab-speaking people, let's say. But it's also difficult for us to pronounce and learn the Arab names. So it's a reciprocal situation.
Well, my name
Yours
is easier.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yours is easy.
Yeah. So,
that's easy.
Mr. Ekhard Brouze. That's correct,
well
right?
Done, well done.
Okay. So, welcome, Mr. The Ambassador Ekhard Brouze. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I've been in this country for a year now.
For a year.
For 1 year.
Okay.
And so I feel settled.
Good. How did you introduce yourself to the Iraqi people?
When I first came, I thought, well, where will I start off? Of course, you have certain meetings which you have to have, like you have to present your credentials
Yes.
to the president, and you see the foreign minister, and you see a couple of other dignitaries.
Okay.
But that's not really, I mean, that's what everybody has to do. You have a choice, of course. You have to start off by, I don't know, by seeing a particular group or emphasizing something. And I thought at the time what would be nice would be to start off with a reception, inviting all the sort of the people from the arts that we know at the embassy. And that's what I did. So we invited about, I don't know, 80 or so came, 70 perhaps came.
Okay. That was 1 year ago.
That was, well, almost 1 year ago,
Okay.
exactly. And I think they appreciated very much in the situation then with ISIS standing in front of the doors of Baghdad, more or less.
Unfortunately.
The gesture of inviting them, because that was a bit of a defiance of terrorism by other means.
Yeah.
Not by weapons, but by simply emphasizing, well, human values and the arts.
Okay. How old are you?
Oh, I have to think. Have a guess? No, I think I'm...
I will have a guess.
You will have a guess?
Yes. 55.
Not bad, not bad. I'm 57.
57?
Yeah.
Well, that's a bit accurate, no?
Yeah.
My guess.
Your guess is good.
Are you married?
Yes, I've been married, in fact, for something like 31 years.
31 years?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how did you meet your wife?
Wow. My wife is Scottish. And how did I meet someone Scottish? Well,
Okay.
in Europe, of course, people travel a lot, so you can meet anywhere. But in our case, we both spent some time studying in England.
Okay. So you met in England?
We met in England at Oxford University, where both of us were studying at the time.
Okay.
And she was doing law, I was doing international relations, and we met almost on the first couple of weeks that I was there.
Okay.
On a pub crawl, as I say. You know what a pub crawl
No.
is? When you're new to the university, you get an introduction to the various pubs of Oxford.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so you crawl from one pub, you walk from one pub to the next, but at the end you crawl. That's why it's called the pub crawl. And
Okay.
she came on it and I came on it, and that's where we met.
And how did you approach her?
Easily, I was just talking to her and I mentioned to her, she asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, I might want to join the Foreign Service. And I said, well, what do you do and what do you want to do afterwards? And she said, well, I'm studying law and I might also join the Foreign Service. I said, that's interesting.
Okay. So do you have kids?
Yeah, we have 4 kids.
4?
Yes, 1
Boys
girl
or girls?
and 3 boys. And in fact, I was just calling one of the 3 boys whose birthday it is today.
Oh, so happy birthday. What's their names?
The
I
names,
hope it's not
the names are a little
hard
bit, they're not too difficult. No, the names are a little bit Scottish-German. So the girl's name is Ayla, which is a Scottish name. It's an island, really.
Yes.
Ayla. And then Achim.
Achim.
Achim sounds almost Arabic a little bit.
Yeah.
Achim, Patrick and Colin.
Could you please tell us what brought you to the diplomacy field?
I think, in my case, when I started my studies in Germany, not at Oxford, but in Germany, was Cologne University, and I started off studying, thinking, okay, I want to do something in the field like politics, economics, philosophy. That's what the 3 subjects I studied. And I wasn't so sure, so it was quite wide open, the area. But one thing which helped me decide was really my cousin, who was a Swedish diplomat at the time. And I visited him and I discussed a lot with him and I met other diplomats through him. And after a while I discovered that many of the people I met I really began to like as persons and interesting people and so on. And this eventually led to my definitely wanting to join the Foreign Service. And that's what I did after the end of my studies.
Okay, so what was your first job?
When you join the Foreign Service in Germany, you have nowadays you have 1 year of extra training.
Yes.
Because it's really, you learn some things which you don't learn at university. A bit more specialized towards your job.
Okay.
And then after that year, I started my work in Bonn at the time, which was the capital.
Okay.
Nowadays it's Berlin, but then it was Bonn. And I worked in the arms control section. Arms control, so reducing nuclear arms and things like that.
Oh.
That was a very important subject at the time because we were sort of the time of INF talks and things like that, which I don't know whether people nowadays know what it was, but it was really talks about reducing nuclear weapons between Russia and the US.
Yes, but your educational background is international relations, right?
International relations and politics, economics, philosophy.
Okay, and?
Yeah, and so it was interesting to work in that field because the minister at the time, Genscher, was heavily engaged in it. We had in Russia a new president, Gorbachev, and Genscher said we need to take him by his word. We need to take literally word by word what he's saying.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of dynamic in the field of arms control. That's how it started off.
Okay.
And that's also how my interest and love for being in Russia started.
Okay.
Because my first posting abroad was in Russia.
And you stayed for 2 years in Russia?
For 3 years at the time of Gorbachev.
Okay.
And then another 3 years later on.
Okay. And what was your reaction when they appointed you the ambassador of Germany in Iraq? I mean, were you scared?
To be honest, I was a little bit surprised because I'm not someone who has an awful lot of background in the Arab world. I have a background more in security policy, in crisis management, these kind of things. But as you can see, you can appoint someone to a place like Baghdad today who's either got a sort of Arab-based background, or you can also choose someone with a more sort of crisis management type background. So in this case, they chose someone with that background. But I was a little bit surprised because I hadn't thought of it simply.
I mean, surprised negatively or positively?
Well, first of all, simply in a neutral manner, because I hadn't thought of it, and they thought of it. They approached me and said, the minister has basically decided you should be ambassador to Baghdad.
Okay.
And I said, whoop. One of the reasons why this is quite a big decision is because when you're posted to Baghdad, you have to leave your family behind.
Sure.
It's not so much that you're afraid you will get blown up in Baghdad, but it's that you leave your family behind, and of course that needs to find acceptance also with, in this case, my wife and the family.
What was her reaction?
Well, she considered a little bit, but no, she agreed in the end, because I do spend quite a bit of time at home as well. I am here, and when I'm here 150%, but I also spend time at home, and when I'm at home, I also try to be really at home and not think about work all day.
And how many times she called you every day just to check on you? And
no, she doesn't.
No.
and I wouldn't like her to, because that would be irritating.
Yeah.
When you're here, you really work hard and you want to concentrate on your work. So, no, we call once or twice a week, but not more.
Just once or twice a week.
Yeah.
That's good. And your kids? You call them how often?
We're in touch via email mostly.
Yeah.
My kids are all over the world. One in Hamburg, one in Beijing, one in, soon at least, in New York, and the other, in Washington, and one in San Francisco. So they're all spread out.
I haven't asked you, how old are they?
They're adults.
Adults?
But two of them are working and two are students.
Okay.
Master students. So they're all between the age of like 24 and 30.
Okay, so wow.
Why don't we perhaps move over there? Normally I receive my guests over there, and there we sit a little bit more in a relaxed fashion.
Okay, why not?
Good.
Let's go. Mr. the Ambassador, what would you be if you were not an ambassador? In other words, what career you used to dream of when you were a teenager, for example?
Well, there's really two questions in one.
Yeah.
When I was a boy, I think there was a stage, I remember, when I wanted to drive a fire engine like every young boy wants to do.
Yeah.
And the police car and the ambulance, because they could really drive fast, and I loved to drive fast. When I became a little older, I think what I might have done, rather than joining the Foreign Service, could have been try and become a foreign correspondent for a paper.
Wow.
So it's something not too distant from my present job. It's different, but it's...
so you have to bear with us the difficulties and the obstacles that we face in the Arab world especially.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would have joined TV, but the writing...
Okay.
The writing kind.
Okay, and what profession you dislike or you don't like to be part of? Profession.
I don't like to be.
Yes.
I don't give much thought to what I don't want to do, because I'm a positive person. I think more about what I want to do, where I want to go, what's ahead of me, rather than all the things you don't want to do. It's more by implication, as you go through life, you make your choices, and this is what happens. You don't think too much. I don't think too much about what I don't want to do.
How do you spend your time in Iraq? Do you have friends? Do you exercise?
Well, it's a good question, of course, but the answer is rather boring, because I spend my time working. When I'm here in Iraq, I come in, I quickly get up to date again, have meetings with my colleagues, and from that minute until I leave for the next holiday or time off, I work. It's that kind of job. It takes that kind of energy to...
How often do you visit Germany?
Well, more or less every 6 weeks or so I get out for some time.
And for how long do you
stay
there?
And when I come in, my batteries are all charged.
So you stay there for a week, or...?
I stay out of the country for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks, depends a bit. But then I come back for about...
Full of energy?
6 weeks, full of energy. And, as is the case, after about 4 weeks or so, then I feel the battery is going a bit lower, and towards the end...
You need to go out again.
One needs to rest, because it is 7 days a week from morning till evening, so it's very intense.
And you don't exercise?
No, I like Churchill, I say, strictly no sports.
Okay. And how do you spend your time?
Apart from
yeah.
away from work, I sleep.
Yeah. Only this?
More or less. No, I read.
Well,
I read a little bit. I do some
okay.
Sudoku.
Sudoku?
Of course, I sometimes meet with the colleagues. Or
Are you going to teach me Sudoku?
I'm going to show you at least.
Show
it's not
me.
so easy to teach, but I'm going to
Really?
show you what it's like.
Maybe it has to do with logic and...
Terrible things like logic, yeah.
Yeah. Used to be like...
Logic and figures.
Okay, so you used to be good at mathematics?
Oh yeah, I loved mathematics and physics and those kind of things.
Okay, and do you swim or...
Not really, no, I don't have the time. I mean, I work really literally all day and then I'm too tired. I just go to bed.
And how about friends? Do you get in touch with them like...
Well, I have friends with whom I exchange emails sometimes.
Okay.
So, but they're not here, so it's complicated. I can't simply get out and go to a pub and sit over a glass of beer with friends. That's just not possible. So, but what's important is that within the embassy we are a very sort of close and tight-knit community. It's not that we're all friends, obviously, but I mean we're all sticking together and we spend a lot of time together. Actually, we eat together every lunchtime, more or less.
So they become your whole world.
Yes.
Friends and family
it
and
is
everything.
It's a slightly artificial world, but it is a little world here in which we live. Of course, I get out every day, but not everybody does.
Okay, yeah, sure.
It's my privilege to be able to get out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the word happiness is like complicated. Can you share with us or with me a moment of happiness, or what makes you happy?
Well, perhaps not surprisingly, what makes me happy is, for example, to have work where I feel it's worthwhile doing it. Okay. So this situation where I'm here working all day, but doing something I think worthwhile, makes me happy. So, but there are other things which make me happy when I'm home. For example, I love to sit with my wife in the garden and just look at the garden, and I love to work in the garden as well. So there are different things. I love to be with my kids. The things that most people like, I think.
Yeah, I can see you are workaholic.
A little bit.
Every question I ask you, you like related to work.
Well, it's partly because I'm like that a little bit, and partly because life here is like that.
Yeah, I know.
Whichever ambassador you will ask here, they will all tell you they're working hard.
Yeah, I know. There's no life. I mean,
there is no.
You're not allowed to go out, right?
Not unless it's for a professional meeting.
Only.
Only.
Okay, you're not allowed to go to a restaurant or to a public place, or even with security.
No.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Which means that I cannot really get to know the country very well, but trying to anyway by traveling a little bit.
Okay. What inspires you the most? It might be a book, a movie, a song.
I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to answer work again.
Please don't.
Well, what I find inspiring is, I would think first of all of certain people. For example, just to give you an example, I had a professor at university.
Okay.
Who inspired me very much because of the way he was, because of the way he thought, because of the way he wrote.
In which sense?
Well, he seemed to have understood a lot about not only his narrow subject, but about sort of life in general.
Okay.
And he put the two together very well.
Okay.
The expertise in his subject with a wider understanding of people and life and our fate as human beings. And so the synthesis was very convincing to me.
Okay. And what about music? Does it inspire you?
It's one way, certainly also for me, of taking off your mind of things. So I sometimes listen to music. Most
German
often.
music?
Well, there's a mixture, like it could be Beethoven, so
okay.
Yeah, there's or Bach. There's German in it, but not only German.
Okay.
And
Arabic music?
Sorry?
What do you think of Arabic music?
Arabic music, I have to tell you, I'm not very knowledgeable about this. What I have heard of it is, for example, this particular kind of lute type of music. You know the lute? It's called oud. Yeah.
Oud, yeah.
Well, we would. I
Okay.
mean, The nearest, I think, in English is like a lute or something.
Yes, yes.
So this oud music is very relaxing and soothing to the soul, I find.
Where did you go in Iraq?
Well, so far, as I said, I try to sometimes get out of this very artificial type of life in Baghdad that we have to lead. But then if you go out, for example, of course, to Kurdistan, and to Erbil and Suleymaniye.
You liked it?
I've been to both places, and it's nice there, but it's also quite different, of course. You can move more freely. But I've also traveled to Najaf and to Basra.
And Basra and Najaf.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was also a very, very interesting experience. It's just nice to be able to talk to people more freely and to be able to move more freely than is possible here.
Okay.
I was a bit disappointed, to be honest, in Basra, because I'd heard it was once a very beautiful city, but it no longer is, unfortunately.
Yeah, and Baghdad was a beautiful city also, but unfortunately because of the war and all what happened.
Yeah. Sometimes when you're in a place high up, like one of the hotels, for example, and you're looking down, you can still see a glimpse of the beauty, at least.
Yeah, sure. You still can. Where did you visit other countries in the Middle East?
I don't know the Middle East that well, to be honest. I'm beginning to get to know this country a bit better, but I don't know the Middle East that well.
You haven't visited any other country?
No, I haven't been
to
other countries in the Middle East. I've been mostly in Russia, in the US, a lot with NATO, and of course in Berlin and Bonn. Those were my main
You should
fields.
visit Lebanon.
Lebanon would certainly be a country worth visiting. I do drink Lebanese wine. I think I already told you about this.
Yes.
And I enjoy that. It's good.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
And what about, which country is your favorite other than Germany?
First of all, the world is too interesting to say one country is the favorite.
Your favorite country? Yeah, it's
also, I'm a diplomat, and of course, as a diplomat, you never answer these questions. But if you press me hard, I would say there's certainly one city which, both for my wife and myself, actually has a special position among all the countries and all the cities we've seen, and that's Florence.
Florence in Italy?
Yeah.
Okay.
It has a very
amazing
special
nature.
atmosphere. Yeah, very, very
Was
nice.
it your honeymoon stay?
No, we didn't stay there for our honeymoon, but we sometimes came on holidays and had very nice times together, that's true.
Okay. What's your favorite dish?
I think one of my favorite dishes certainly is a very simple dish. It used to be the dish of poor people in Europe, which is like potatoes and herring, so raw herring, in a kind of marinade.
Okay. It's not a German dish.
A yogurty. It is a
European.
It is eaten if you live on the coast somewhere, in Germany, in
Italy,
France. In the Netherlands.
Oh.
So it's up there, Belgium. That's the countries that know this kind of, perhaps in some of the Scandinavian countries as well.
What's the name of the dish?
Well, it's herring, basically.
Okay.
You can have it in various shapes and forms, but it's at the end of the day, it's herring, and it used to be very cheap. That's why it was poor man's
popular dish.
Food. Yeah.
Okay.
Nowadays, herring is quite expensive, so it's no longer perhaps for poor people.
Have you tasted Arabic or Iraqi food?
Yes, every day, basically.
Really?
Yes, because our cook
is Iraqi.
Is Iraqi.
Okay.
And he cooks for us
What type of food?
every day.
Tapsi? Do you know tapsi?
Well, I've had tapsi.
You like it?
It's nice, yeah.
Oh, this is my favorite in Iraq.
Is it your favorite? Okay.
Yeah, in Iraq, it's good.
So I've had it, I've tried it.
Dolma, you know dolma?
Dolma as well, and he prepares all these things, of course.
Yeah.
Our food that he prepares for us, for all of us who eat together at lunchtime, is normally a kind of fusion, I would call it. It's a mixture between Iraqi food and European cuisine. So he has some dishes which people have taught him, which are more European, and others which are Iraqi. And he sort of does a creative mixture of both.
You didn't learn Arabic?
No, I didn't have time, because the time between being told I was going to go as ambassador to Baghdad and going here was about a month. You don't learn Arabic in a month.
But it's like an interesting language.
I started learning it, but
and as a diplomat,
it would be nice.
It's important,
It would be nice to be able to speak it, but then you need a year or so to learn it, and then
and to practice
you
it.
go there and to practice it, and yeah. So, in my case, that wasn't possible, I'm afraid.
Okay. What do you think of those personalities that I'm going to name now, but in one word? George W. Bush.
Problematic politician.
One word. Diplomatic? Problematic.
Problematic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Angela Merkel.
A leader.
Barack Obama.
Intelligent.
Hitler.
Criminal.
Benjamin Netanyahu.
A very hard-headed man. A very hard-headed man.
حيدر العبادي.
I wish him well.
One word.
No, he's a capable man for this country.
فؤاد معصوم.
A bridge builder.
Good answers. You are like a diplomat, a real diplomat. Okay, so let's move to the sitting room.
Right? I'm
All
going to
right.
show you the residence.
Yeah, okay.
Okay?
What are we going to play now?
I'm going to show you one of my hobbies, which is playing wool. And,
Is it one of your hobbies?
It is one of my hobbies.
You didn't mention it inside.
I didn't mention it, I forgot. Those three?
All right.
Because everybody should use for it. So the middle distance, roughly. Okay, not bad.
Wow, very close.
See, it was very close. See, a little close.
All right.
This goes on.
Germany is the largest economy in Europe and maybe the fourth largest economy in the world. What's behind this exceptional economical development?
It is quite remarkable in a way, especially considering that after the World War, of course, Germany was on its knees and had to rebuild the whole economy, really. Also, after unification between East and West Germany, again, there was a big economic problem, a gap to be overcome between East and West. All of this took a lot of time, a lot of effort, but I think ultimately what's behind the economic strength and price in Germany is to a considerable extent our smaller and medium-sized firms. It's astonishingly not the big firms like that everybody knows, like Siemens or Mercedes
Yes.
or BMW. It's the small firms that you wouldn't necessarily recognize the name of. These firms are the backbone of German industry. We call it der Mittelstand, so the medium-sized German firms. They are very strong and competitive.
As you said, Germany and cars are connected by long history. Why do you think this industry, the car or the automotive industry, is the backbone of the economical development in Germany?
It's a very important part of it. There are other backbones, if you want to, but certainly automotive industry is important. It has a very long tradition going back really to the time of Porsche and Daimler and so on. I think what makes German cars special is sort of attention to detail. It's not just four wheels and a driving seat. It's so many little details which have to be put together in a harmonious manner so that one supports the other, that they harmonize. That needs a lot of attention to detail and perfectionism, and this is something that Germans, I think, have.
Okay. Could you tell me, please, about the role of the government in the development of the country and in all fields, like medical and educational?
As in every country, of course, government is important.
Yeah.
However, when I compare, for example, Germany with Iraq, government is much less present in every field of everyday life in Germany.
Yeah, sure.
It is much more taken back and restrained to those areas where government help or government activity is really needed. And also, one big difference is that in Germany, the government is very decentralized. You have a central government in Berlin, but you have local governments in all the Länder, and they have considerable responsibilities in the field of culture, school, police, the law. So there's quite a lot going on in the Länder, something going on in Berlin, but altogether the state as such is smaller than it would be in a country like Iraq.
Okay. Do you think is it because also of a well-calculated vision of the politicians, or maybe in knowing how to encountering corruption in the country? That's why the development is quite good.
It's true that the economic development that you see in Germany, you wouldn't be able to imagine it were the country very corrupt. Corruption undermines that sort of development dramatically. So while nobody can say that there's not a single corrupt firm or person in a country, obviously these people do exist also in Germany. The economy as a whole is, I think, almost free of corruption, and that makes it strong, because then the forces of market can work, and then the better firm will get the deal, and not the firm that pays more money.
In your opinion, how Germany did succeed in encountering corruption, or limited it at least?
If an economy and if a country works well, then I think the temptation to move into corruption is not that present. For example, if you go to school, you learn your values, you learn what's good, what's not so good. You go to university, you study, you start your profession. All of this, if that works well, if it's well ordered, I think people are educated not to be corrupt. Whereas if there's a lot of violence going on, if there's no regular schooling perhaps at some stages, if there's many problems, then corruption takes a hold.
Where does your country stand with regard to the Arab-Israeli conflict? What's your strategy against the Arab world?
I think due to the Holocaust, we have a very special relationship, of course, with Israel. To us, the existence and the security of Israel is very important. But at the same time, we advocate a separate Palestinian state alongside Israel. So this, I think, describes quite well our dual approach. Security and a right of existence for Israel, but also a right of existence for the Palestinians. And with regard to the whole Middle East, I think we would want to see a Middle East as a region which takes better advantage of economic possibilities, where people can lead a better life than they have at the moment, and where countries which are in some cases opposed at the moment learn to live together better and look at the region as a whole and do something for the good of the region as a whole.
As for ISIS and all the terrorist organizations, we know for a fact that Germany is against them. But is there any specific action that Germany took and reflected their position against ISIS and those terrorist organizations?
Yes, there are actions at home and there are actions here in support of Iraq. The actions at home are, for an example, we do ban certain people where we know they have a connection to ISIS or they're about to develop that connection. We ban these people from traveling abroad, from leaving Germany, so they cannot come here. Here in this country, we have supported Iraq militarily. In particular, we have supported the Peshmerga because that's where the encounter with ISIS first happened when they came from the north, from Mosul. So we've supported the Peshmerga. You probably know about the famous weapon Milan, which they use against hardened targets. These vehicles which are loaded with explosives, and with using Milan they can destroy them and they can save themselves. So this weapon, for example, made a big difference, but we also support by training people east of Erbil. So those are some of the areas where we act. We're also very active in supporting Iraq in stabilizing those areas which are liberated from ISIS, because we feel bringing IDPs back from the various corners of the country where they're stuck to where they actually want to be and where they actually came from would be a great development and would help greatly this country to stabilize and would help the people.
Yeah. Why do you think some German products invaded the world, like aspirin, Nivea, Puma, Adidas, Fanta?
Well, we don't mind. We like that.
I'm sure you don't.
And why is it? I think because these are good products somehow.
Or marketing, or vision, or...
I think it's to do more with a kind of perfectionism. I mean, many of these products which have conquered the world are just perfected in a particular way, so that people like them.
Do you wear Puma or Adidas?
Well, I'm not sure what I'm wearing.
No, I mean, not now, I'm sure. Okay, if you want to discuss the bilateral relation between Germany and Iraq, how do you define it?
It's a relationship which is characterized by the fact that one of the two partners is undergoing a severe and protracted crisis. And so it's not the normal partnership that you have between two countries that cooperate and exchange and so on. It's that very special relationship that you have when one country really needs a lot of assistance and understanding and help from the other side. We have a long-standing relationship, so we do have political relations which go back a long time, and we do have economic relations which go back a long time. This helps us to maintain the relationship even in these critical stages where Iraq is basically fighting for its integrity as a state.
If you want to compare Iraq and Germany as two countries who experienced war, what do you say about this?
In the case of Germany,
I mean, the impact of war on Germany and the impact of war on Iraq.
First of all, of course, the war in Germany is a long time in the past already. I didn't experience it. I have read history books.
But you've read about it, of course.
It was a world war, so Germany was in the middle of it, really. It was completely destroyed. I think there are big differences, in spite of the fact that Iraq is also undergoing a warlike situation, but it is a different war. It's a war against terrorism, not against another state. It's a war which is in many ways asymmetrical, because there are not two armies really opposing each other. There is perhaps on the one side of the state of Iraq, there is an army, there are armed forces, but on the other side, these are terrorists. They are hiding and they're using every means to fight their war.
Yeah, but disregarding this, I mean, the impact of war on Iraq and the impact of war on Germany. The difference, and how can we benefit, or how can Iraq benefit from this experience?
It's difficult to say that you benefit from a war. I wouldn't say that, but
getting out of the war.
Yes, getting out of the war, yes. I would say that there's one experience in particular, a German experience, which can be of use perhaps also to Iraq, and that's the experience of welding together a society after a big upheaval or crisis.
Yes.
The Second World War was such an enormous upheaval for German society, and it took quite a while to weld it together again. German unification was that kind of upheaval, and we're still working on it to get the two societies to come together and feel as one. Iraq has a problem in that regard. The society is segregated and is not united.
Yes.
And there's a lot of, at least distrust, if not hatred, between various groups. This needs to be brought together, and that is a big task where fighting ISIS together can help in a way, because it's a common enemy, but it's not enough. You need to work also in many other ways, as the government does and as many other actors do in Iraq, actually to bring reconciliation. I, for one, think that the return of IDPs from the areas where they're now to the areas where they really belong to would be a great contribution to reconciliation.
Okay. Away from the war, if you want to compare the Islamic cultural heritage or the Arabic cultural heritage and the German cultural heritage, what's the difference between the two aspects?
Those are sort of big entities.
Yes.
German cultural,
you can just
Islamic
give examples.
Obviously, one thing that, as an example, one thing I notice when I live in a country characterized by the Islamic culture that is quite different and gives me also a different feeling from what I have when I'm in Germany. That is the fact that through your history and through your culture, I guess, the role of families is quite unique, as I experience it.
Yes, correct.
First of all, the families are big.
Very strong ties among
but
the
secondly,
families.
they have enormously strong ties. And this means a great deal from personal life right to politics. This is something which in Germany, of course you have families, but they're smaller. They don't hang together that much. It's a different tradition, it's a different history. And so that's something which I find striking as an experience.
What are the differences that surprised you when you first came to Iraq? On any level? Maybe the difference in the cultural heritage or...
One of the... there are many things, of course, when you come to a country that's quite different. And there are sort of cultural things, but there are also banal things. For example, I was surprised when I had my first tea.
Yeah.
At my first meeting with one of the officials, and as is usual, a tea is offered. So I said, "Oh, tea, that's nice." And I started drinking it, and it was like sugar. It was like pure sugar. So that's something which is surprising, but you learn.
Okay. Yes, sure.
And the next time around, you ask for tea without sugar.
Okay.
But
you drink it without sugar.
Yeah.
Zero sugar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also quite striking to come here, and I came in the middle of the summer last year, to come here at a time when the temperatures rise up to 50 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
People at home ask me, well, how can you survive that? And I tell them it's like an oven which you put on.
Yes.
To 100 degrees, and then you put your head in it, and that's how it feels.
Oh, my God, yeah.
So, there are many little things like that, but on the whole, I think, there are human beings living here, and there's human beings living in Germany.
Yes.
So it's not that fundamentally different. And we, at the embassy, in any case, we have Germans and Iraqis living and working together all day. So there's a close relationship, and you get to know each other quite well, and you realize we're all human beings.
Yeah, sure. But what about the character of Iraqi people? I'm sure you met Iraqi people, and
Yeah, I can tell you some things which I enjoy, which I like. First of all, I think what I enjoy most is that they have a good sense of humor.
Yes.
I noticed that on several occasions and early on.
Maybe because of war. They get the sense of humor from war and
from... the war, you need to have a sense of humor in a difficult situation to survive. But it's nice to be talking to people with a sense of humor. I like that. And they're very warm-hearted and welcoming. The hospitality is overwhelming for us.
Yes.
In Germany, yes, when you're invited, you get something to eat or so, but it's not such masses as it is here normally.
Yeah. What do you think about Iraqi women?
Well, I don't see that many, but I see some, of course, in the embassy. And the Iraqi women I've seen I find attractive and nice and easy to get on with.
Okay.
For example, when I think about Iraqi women, of course, the role of Iraqi women in society is different to what it is in Germany. And I did do an invitation for International Women's Day, for example, this year.
I would like to know the difference between
that was interesting,
the Iraqi women and German women.
But there you could see very well this invitation, the enormous span of Iraqi women. You had women all covered up.
Yes.
The minister herself was here as well, the Minister for Women's Affairs. And you had representatives of NGOs, for example, who were quite a different type, who were younger, who were more progressive, who were perhaps more aggressive even, asking for equal rights for women in the profession and in pay and in education and all those areas.
What would you tell us about the German women and the role of German women in the society?
It is also undergoing change at the moment, but the tendency is quite clear that German women, more and more of them do work, more and more of them have the same level of education as men. In fact, statistically, they even have a higher education now.
Okay.
So, in many ways, they are exactly in the same position as men are in that society. However, there are also questions like, when do you want to have your children? Do you have your professional education first? Sometimes you're quite old by that time. Do you then want to have your children, or do you want to have them earlier?
Yeah.
Who looks after the children? Do you give them to kindergarten, or do you want to look after the children yourself? All these.
Could you please tell me, how do you promote Germany?
Well, first I try to be nice myself. Because if you go somewhere as a German ambassador, you're always taken to be Germany. You're representing Germany. So
you are super nice, I can guarantee.
Well, thank you. But so it's obviously the way you act, the way you speak, the way
Yes.
you communicate is important, and people draw their conclusions from that. No, but that's it's only half serious. Of course,
Okay.
there's other ways of promoting the country.
The nature, food, people.
It's not so easy for Iraqis to go to Germany for tourism. Let's be fair. That's the case.
Why not?
Well, because it's
The visa thing, you mean?
No, it's partly. I mean, many Iraqis. I mean, it's expensive, obviously.
Yeah.
So many
Okay.
Iraqis find it probably difficult to afford it.
Okay.
But what do we promote of Germany? I mean, it's perhaps more an image that which I talked about already a little bit. That we are a society that's sort of fairly harmonious, fairly closely knit, fairly egalitarian as well. We don't have we do have differences between rich and poor, but they're not as big as in many other countries.
Okay, but please promote Germany in one sentence.
Germany has a great quality of life.
That's good enough. Okay, and what about food? Tell me about food in Germany. You have hot dogs and Frankfurter, and
Well, probably
it's
what you think.
originally German, right? Hot
Yes,
dogs?
but it is. It's only a small fraction of what you have in German food nowadays.
course.
It's pretty international. I mean,
This
you
is what
can-
we know about Germany, because you know this is
The picture is a little bit sort of probably geared towards Bavaria. You know about the Oktoberfest and the Weisswürste or something like that.
Okay.
But that is part of Germany, but it's not the whole of Germany.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
a varied country, and that's why I was telling you about federalism. I mean, it's not just like the country is all over the same. It's quite different in different parts.
Yeah, I've never visited
Well
Germany.
worth exploring.
Yeah, I've never visited Germany, but I've been told that Berlin is beautiful.
Well, Berlin is quite special. Has a special culture, also subculture. It's very
Yeah.
strong on the arts.
Yeah.
It's not that expensive.
Not
No,
expensive?
not that expensive.
Okay.
It's not like New York or London or
New York
Paris.
is expensive.
Yeah, but Berlin isn't so expensive.
Isn't so
No,
expensive.
and it makes it attractive also for artists, because many artists, when they start off, are fairly poor.
Okay.
And so Berlin attracts these people and has a very, very interesting art scene.
Okay.
It's one of the reasons.
Okay. Tell me one thing you love about Germany and one thing you hate about Germany.
Well, I love to live a good quality of life, as I said before. What I don't like about Germany is that people tend to be a bit timid.
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 Okay.
In the sense that they are not. They have angst of so many things. They're not sort of just going out and saying, "Okay, I'll do this. I'll manage this."
Okay.
This kind of spirit.
They
is-
don't have like high self-esteem.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but they're just a little bit sort of
Shy.
shy and not sure enough of themselves and a little
Okay.
bit afraid of things too easily. For
One
example, when they hear that I'm in Baghdad, everybody says, "Oh,
Oh yeah.
you know, So that's one thing I find a bit exaggerated.
And one thing that you like about Iraq?
Wow, I like about Iraq.
One thing.
I think what I like very much is what I mentioned already, these close family relationships. I admire that.
Okay. And one thing that you dislike about Iraq? I know what you... But please don't be like very...
I know what I dislike about Iraq, and I say it loud and clear. Red tape and bureaucracy. That is what I really hate.
Really?
Yes. And there's a lot of it in Iraq.
Yeah, correct. Okay, so talking about art, and there are a lot of arts in Germany, I have something for you. It's art related. Let me show it to you. This is art. This is a gift from Al-Mada to you. Would you please open it?
I will.
I will help you if you want. Iraqi painter, a 10 years old Iraqi painter.
Oh, that's good.
She's a talented girl.
Great.
You like it?
10 years old, I think.
Yeah, 10 years old. She's like in grade 5, but she's a talented painter. Her name is Azal. We like...
Lives here in Iraq.
Yes, in Baghdad. Yes.
Well,
And
thank you very much.
she got like many prizes.
I find a good place for it.
Yeah.
Such a nice present. I thought
Wow.
I'd also give you a little present.
Oh, thank you.
It was not produced by a 5-year-old, wasn't produced by me, it was produced a piece of porcelain.
Okay, is it German?
Yes, of course.
Good.
Produced in Germany by a very traditional factory.
Uh-huh.
The factory was founded by Frederick the Great in the 18th century.
Uh-huh, good.
Produced ever since then.
Wow.
And, well, it's something very German. So
Thank you so much. Thank you. You didn't have to. Oh, that's so nice. Okay. It's okay, I'll fix it later. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. Thank you, Mr. the Ambassador, for your time. Thank you for hosting us. أعزائي المشاهدين، شكرا لمتابعتكم لهذه الحلقة من برنامج في بيت السفير. إلى اللقاء في الحلقة القادمة. Thank you.